When you were in school, how much time did you spend learning mathematics? How about history? How many hours were you supposed to spend doing your English homework? For most of us, the answer is hundreds, thousands of hours learning a standard curriculum. But how much time did you spend learning about how your brain works and how to apply the understanding of your brain to improving your memory? How about the relationship of your memory to your creative power? Did you spend any time in school learning about the integration of mind and body and how to free yourself from habits that limit your full creative self-expression? How about bringing out the genius in other people? Most of us didn't spend any time on those subjects. Well, in this series, what I'm going to do is take you through a new curriculum, a curriculum that focuses on your own incredible mental and physical power and how to liberate your creative genius and put it to work in everyday life.
What if you could train your brain to think in smarter and faster ways while creating ideas that solve real-life problems? How much more adventurous and spontaneous would you become? How much better would you be at fostering innovation and progress in all areas of your life? Well, the answers are clear. When you learn to put your creative genius to work, the possibilities are endless. Michael Gelb is internationally renowned as a leader in mind development and creativity training. And in this program, he'll guide you towards sharpening and intensifying your mind power. The future belongs to those who can mine their intellectual capital and generate an infinite wealth of ideas. So let's rejoin Michael and learn how you can maximize the incredible resources you already possess.
Every human being is gifted with the potential for creative genius. The great writer Thomas Mann said, "We are all born as infant prodigies." Although science has now caught up with Mann's statement, and we really understand that the potential of your brain is virtually unlimited, most folks are still ignorant about their full potential. I mean, think about it. In your workplace, let's say somebody makes a mistake, and they're confronted with it. Now, most folks have a pretty good litany of excuses when they are confronted with their mistakes. You know, the computers were down, I didn't get the reports on time, my dog ate my homework. But when people are backed up against the wall, they come up with that one all-purpose excuse. Well, what do you want? After all, I'm only human. That's right, only human. Well, let's look at the subtext of that remark, I'm only human. What does it mean to be only human? I'm only human. I only have 30 billion brain cells. Each one of those brain cells has a cell body. Remember, you learned that in biology curriculum, a cell body. And from that central cell body, there are 10 to 100 long tentacle-like arms called dendrites. Each of those dendrites has between 100 and 1,000 little chemical sacs called dendritic spines. Electrical energy pulses through the dendrite, shoots into a little dendritic spine, which is shaped kind of like a mushroom. That electrochemical energy leaps across a tiny microscopic gap into another dendritic spine, shooting that electrochemical information along the other dendrite into a cell body, and so on through your brain. Now, the number of chemical reactions taking place in your brain every second is a minimum of 100,000. What's the number of possible patterns of connection in your brain? Well, according to Professor Anokhin of Moscow University, Anokhin was a disciple of Pavlov. According to Professor Anokhin, the number of possible connections, and he made this first estimate about 15 years ago, he said that the number of possible connections in your brain was 10 to the 800. Now, just to give you an idea of how vast that number is, the best estimate of the number of atoms that exist in the entire universe is 10 to the 80. But as advances in computer technology and electron microscopy continued, Anokhin was able to make another estimate before he died. And he emphasized that this was still a conservative estimate. What he wrote and stated before he died was that the number of possible connections in your brain, is the number one, followed by 6.5 million miles of standard-size IBM typewritten zeros. Only human. I'm only human. I only have 30 billion brain cells, and the number of possible connections is only estimated to be 1, followed by 6.5 million miles of standard-size IBM typewritten zeros. Of course I can't do it, not to mention the fact that the neural circuitry of my brain is estimated to be, again conservatively, 1,400 times more complex than the entire global telephone network. And of course, remember those 100,000 chemical reactions taking place in your brain every second. Of course, I'm only human. I really deeply believe, and at the end of this program, I think you're going to believe with me, that you are gifted with the power of creative genius. And that's not just some theoretical concept. It's something practical, something you can bring to bear, more than anything, in improving the quality of your life. That's really my deepest commitment to you, is to help you improve the quality of your life. Yes, we'll talk about how to improve your performance, how to be more effective in the workplace, better thinker, better problem solver, better memory, how to improve with age. But what's the purpose? The purpose is quality of life. The purpose is enjoying the beauty of being alive every single day more fully, and sharing that joy with your family, with your colleagues, maybe even with your boss. The need to put your creative genius to work is greater than ever now. When I first led creative thinking seminars in the corporate world in the late 70s and early 80s, most individuals responded enthusiastically, but the organization seemed to view these sessions as a form of high-class infotainment, an opportunity to think some new thoughts before returning to business as usual. I once offered some suggestions to the training manager of a Fortune 500 company on how to apply creative thinking in the workplace, and he responded, "Oh, we don't need to apply anything. We just need to run people through a certain number of hours of training." Now, there is a new emphasis on creative thinking as an integral tool in creating learning organizations. Many of these same companies have called back recently, expressing a tremendous desire to apply the lessons of creative thinking. I've been passionately studying the thinking styles of history's greatest geniuses for more than 20 years. Study has come in really handy because the creative thinking skills of geniuses, which used to be considered interesting and perhaps even inspiring, are now essential for anyone interested in living a balanced, creative life in the face of tremendous complexity and change. As you've no doubt noticed, businesses are busy redesigning themselves. The good news is that they are increasingly recognizing that human creativity is their primary, sustainable, competitive advantage. I believe we're on the verge of a new renaissance. The center of this renaissance is the development of intellectual capital. And through this series, you're going to realize just how wealthy you truly are and how to invest in that incredible capital bank that you carry around with you. This program is based on the assumption that the skills of creative genius can and must be learned, and that the development of these skills begins with personal growth. A more fulfilling life, a happier family, a healthier organization, a saner society. They all start with your thinking, your actions, and your courage. When we talk about courage, most people think about great heroic acts, rescuing children from a burning building or jumping on a hand grenade to save the lives of fellow soldiers. As inspiring as these dramatic demonstrations are, courage is also an important aspect of everyday living. The courage to look deeply at yourself and your habits, the courage to open your mind, the courage to try something new. About 20 years ago, I was riding on a train in southern Italy. It was one of these really slow trains, just chugging along. It's about 90 degrees outside. The train was packed with people. Everybody's got food, picnics, They're all spread out. There's wine, there's salamis, there's mortadellas, there's mozzarellas. And personally, I love it, but it's a little crowded, a little bit intense. Anyway, the train slowly pulls into some tiny little station, some little village, middle of nowhere, southern Italy. And train stops. A couple people get out. And I see this elderly couple slowly making their way towards the train. And there's this elderly gentleman. He's a little bit bent over, he's shuffling along, and he's kind of guiding this lady who looks even older than he does, really bent over. It looks like she's got to go somewhere, and he's saying goodbye to her. So anyway, he's helping her up the stairs. She's bent over, and she makes her way up to about the third stair and looks up into the train. And she sees this mass of sweltering humanity, mortadellas everywhere, and her face just drops. Her jaw drops, her eyes get heavy, and she's got this facial expression that says, "Oh my God, what a mess. I don't want to go on this hideous train filled with these horrible young people." And slowly she turns around and looks at her husband. She looks at him with this look that says, "Please don't make me go on this train." Well, her husband pauses and then looks deeply in her eyes, and he says one word. He says, "Coraggio." Well, the old lady raises up her posture, walks onto the train, and carries on. This series is going to talk a lot about your intellectual power, but never forget that real learning, real change, real growth comes from the heart. The word courage, coraggio, comes from the root cur, which means heart. Courage is a quality of the heart. It's opening your heart in order to open your mind. So now, as we embark on this training together, let's draw inspiration from the words of the inauguration speech of a courageous leader, written shortly after his liberation from 30 years in prison. This is from Nelson Mandela's inauguration speech. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us. It's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So, to get your mind in gear here, to get the most out of this program, I want to take you through a few simple little tests of your creative ability and your memory ability, just to give us a benchmark for the improvement that you're going to experience in this program. The first test is a classic test of creative thinking ability. It's called the alternate use test. So what you'll need to take this test is a sheet of paper and a pen. And what I'd like you to do is entitle the sheet of paper Creativity Test Number 1. And what I'm going to do is ask you to think of as many uses as you possibly can for a something. If you're driving along in your car while you're doing this test, just do it in your head, come up with as many answers as you can in the required time. So when I ask you to think of as many uses as you possibly can for this thing, and when I tell you what this thing is, what I want you to do is stop the program for 2 minutes and generate as many ideas as you can. After 2 minutes, start the program up again and rejoin me. Stop the program now and think of as many uses as you can for a paper clip. Okay, welcome back. How many answers did you come up with in that 2-minute period? What I'd like you to do is add up your total, or estimate it if you just did the exercise in your head, and then divide by 2. Since that was a 2-minute time period, dividing by 2 will give you your score in terms of uses per minute. After you've calculated your score by dividing by 2, what I'd like you to do is just think of your best answer. What was your best answer in that little creativity exercise? Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, what does he mean by best answer? What I mean is whatever you think your best answer is, whatever your own personal subjective criteria is for your best answer. Now, why did you choose the one you chose as your best answer? Your criteria for choosing your best answer is very significant, and I'll come back to it in a minute. But first, let's consider how you actually did on the test. What was your score? The international average score on this test is about 3 or 4 answers per minute. A score of 8 answers or more per minute is rare indeed. A score of 12 or higher correlates significantly with other genius-level measures of creative thinking ability. And a score of 16 or higher, well, that's right off the charts. So a little bit later on, I'm going to show you how to get a score on this test that's right off the charts. And the secret to improving your score so dramatically may well lie in an understanding of your criteria for your best answer. People tend to choose their best answers for one of 2 major sets of reasons. A lot of folks choose their best answer because it was the most logical, the most tried, tested, proven, commonsensical use of a paperclip. For a lot of people, their best answer is to clip paper. Other people choose their best answer because it was the most imaginative, the most strange, bizarre, unusual, off-the-wall use of a paperclip. They come up with things like using it as a kind of art and twisting the clip into a beautiful Henry Moore-like shape, or for juggling, or for self-defense, and all sorts of other wacko ideas. Now, in the study of genius, not just genius in art, but genius in science, genius in business, what we find is that geniuses are people who have the ability to integrate these 2 modes of thinking. In other words, they're able to look at a problem from a logical, common sense, down-to-earth perspective, and they're also able to let their minds go to come up with all kinds of off-the-wall, outside the dominant paradigm ideas. But then they link the fruits of their imagination back to logic. This integration of logic and imagination, of analysis and synthesis, of convergent and divergent thinking, is one of the fundamental secrets of putting your creative genius to work. And in a little while, I'm going to teach you how to actually do it. But first, it's time for another little test. This one's on memory. What you want here is a sheet of paper, something to write with, and entitle this Short-Term Memory Test number 1. Once again, if you're in your car, just do this in your head. And in case you forgot the instruction, it's Short-Term Memory Test number 1. So what I'm going to do is read you a list of number-word pairs, and I want you to do your best to remember which number goes with which word. You've got to do this part totally in your head, no writing down the answers. Okay, so here we go. Got to get the right word with the right number. Number 1, boat. Number 2, music. Number 8, photograph. Number 5, green. Number 10, stove. Number 7, telephone. Number 3, stone. Number 9, dog. Number 4, potato. Number 6, smoke. Okay, so there you go. If you can, take a little stretch and, yes, here we go. Memory test. Okay. Write down the number word pairs that you remember. Obviously, if you're driving, just try to review them in your mind's eye. So turn off the program and recall the ones you can. Write them down if you have your paper and pen handy. And rejoin me when you're done. So welcome back. You're going to score 1 point for every correct number word pair. You've got to get the right word with the right number. Doesn't matter what order you had them in, as long as you have the right number with the right word. So number 1 was boat. Number 2 was music. Number 3 was stone. Number 4 was potato. 5 was green. 6 was smoke. 7 was telephone. 8 was photograph. 9 was dog. And 10 was stove. So score 1 point for every correct number word pair. I'm afraid there's no credit if you just got the numbers without the words. How'd you do? The average score on this test is about 4 out of 10. If you did better than that, well, you're above average, and if you did worse, don't worry about it. Help is on the way. What I'd like you to do is, at this moment, just consider what was your strategy for remembering. What did you try to do? Maybe you've already taken a memory course and you used one of the memory systems, in which case, well done. But most folks don't have trained memories, and what they usually try to do is make some sort of story, some sort of associational link between the numbers and the words. Problem with that is, as I start going from number 1 to number 6 and number 9 and number 2, they get thrown off their order and it becomes hard to keep the story together. But nevertheless, most people intuitively try to make associations, make some kind of logical connection, try to create pictures in their mind's eye that link one idea with another. And your intuition here is right on if that's what you tried to do. The problem is that most of us haven't been systematically trained in how to access the association of images. I'm going to teach you how to do that, and more importantly, I'm going to teach you how that process is at the core of your creative ability. And of course, I'll also teach you how to get 100% on the test every time, but that's easy. The skill that is at the core of developing your creative genius and putting it to work is memory. As my good friend, chess grandmaster Raymond Keane says, memory confers both the freedom to break from accepted wisdom and the power to create the new. Memory is a storehouse for the ingredients of creative genius. The more you know, the more you can know, and the more you know, the more your capacity for creativity expands. Data, information, facts, impressions, knowledge, understanding, association, statistics, concepts, and theories form the base ingredients for any creative recipe. Louis Pasteur said, "Success favors the prepared mind." Creative geniuses prepare their minds by continuously nourishing their memories. Now, at this point, many people say, well, forget it, because this creative genius stuff is out of my league. My memory's not so hot. I only got 6 out of 10 on that test. And besides, I'm getting older. And we all know what happens to memory with age. Before I show you a simple method for awakening and harnessing your amazing memory power and linking it to your expanding creative ability, let's examine the evidence for the pernicious assumptions about memory and age. Why do most people think that memory declines with age? Well, scores on memory tests and other intelligence measurements do seem to decline with age. And everybody knows that we lose brain cells as we get older. And, everybody knows that people just get forgetful as they get older. I mean, it's common knowledge, right? Let's look at these commonly held assumptions in a little bit more depth. First one is this business of scores on memory tests and other intelligence measurements declining with age. Now think about this. Who's more used to taking tests? People in their late teens and 20s or people who are 60, 70, or 80? If you're in your late teens or 20s, you've been taking tests on a regular basis for years. And if you're 60, 70, or 80, well, you probably haven't taken any kind of test for 50 or 60 years, and then all of a sudden you're given this battery of tests. So as with many tests, these kinds of memory and intelligence tests test test-taking ability, not memory and intelligence. Not only that, but when scientists have conducted longitudinal studies, a longitudinal study is a study that looks at the same people over time, they find that there's no decline in memory and no decline in intelligence with aging. So it's just not true. But what about the old brain cells? We're all losing them as we get older. And, you had a couple of beers the other night and people say, well, here goes another 10,000 brain cells. Hilk. Well, there's no evidence whatsoever that you lose brain cells as you get older. And you do not lose brain cells when you have a few drinks. Now, of course, chronic alcoholism will destroy your whole brain and body. But moderate drinking will not cause the loss of brain cells. There's just no evidence to that effect. And here's the deal. Even if you lost 1,000 brain cells every single day for the rest of your life, it would still be less than 1% of your total. And of course, you do have to make sure you're not losing the 1% that you actually use. The good news is that your brain has more plasticity, more adaptability than anyone ever previously imagined. As you learn, you build new synapses and new pathways through your brain. You can change, grow, develop, and continually recreate your brain throughout life. Ribonucleic acid, or RNA levels, RNA is a complex molecule intimately involved in the process of learning and encoding memories, actually increase with age. What about this other canard that everybody knows that old people tend to be forgetful? Well, a couple of points here. One is that, sadly, for many older people, their life has become routine, and recent events aren't so outstanding because they were the same as they were the day before and the day before and the day before. You ever notice, though, your grandma probably has amazing recognition and recall for events from your childhood, things that you've long forgotten. She remembers anything that's outstanding or meaningful to her, but, well, where she put her glasses just isn't that significant. There's another key factor here in forgetfulness, and it's related to fitness. Very simply, your brain uses about 30% of your body's oxygen, although it's only, on average, about 2.5% of your body's weight. Lack of exercise and an unhealthy diet causes arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis stops blood flow to the brain. Oxygen reaches the brain through that blood flow. So for many people, a decline in mental functioning is really an oxygen deficit. And there's tremendous evidence to support this. In one study, older folks were given a memory test and a series of intelligence tests. They were then put in an oxygen chamber for 15 minutes. When they came out of the oxygen chamber, their scores went up significantly. In another study, they tested memory and intelligence and then performed carotid artery surgery on people who had arteriosclerosis. In other words, they literally cleaned out the arteries so that more blood flow and therefore more oxygen could make it to the brain. Once again, scores went up significantly. Now, I wouldn't plan on relying on an oxygen tent or carotid artery surgery. I'd say focus right now on a program of mind and body fitness that will prepare you for lifelong oxygenation. And later in this program, I'm going to take you through an approach to developing just that kind of fitness. There's one more factor here too, besides the oxygenation. As Leonardo da Vinci once wrote in his journal, iron rusts from disuse, stagnant water loses its purity, and in cold weather becomes frozen. Even so does inaction sap the vigors of the mind. Learning something new, taking on new challenges, taking a psychokinetic approach to life is the fountain of youth. If you get stuck in habits, stuck in routines, become stagnant, become frozen, well, you can expect to sap the vigors of your mind. It's common sense. So what it all comes down to is this: your attitude, your approach to learning, your fitness, and one other factor, a practical understanding of how your memory works and how to train it. Now, the good news is that you obviously have an approach to continuous learning since you purchased this program. Let's talk a little bit about your attitude, and then we'll talk about developing this practical understanding for the way your memory actually works and how to train it. It's a funny thing about attitude towards memory, and I hope yours is changing just from the debunking we have done of the common myths about memory declining with age. But it is a funny and powerful thing that I've noticed that people hit age 30. It seems to happen particularly around age 30. And the first time they forget something after age 30, they say, oh my God, my memory's starting to go. And forget about it. The first time they trip, coordination's starting to go. You know, it's not like the old days. And people get together and they have fun commiserating. I love that word, commiserating. You know what it means? It means to be miserable together. But let's look at this business of our negative attitude towards our performance as we hit age 30. Ask any grade school teacher how much stuff the average kid forgets every day in the classroom. Take little Johnny. He's 6 years old. He runs off to school. Busy day. Forgets his marbles and his petrified frog and his baseball cards. Teacher calls home, tells Johnny's mom, Johnny forgot his baseball cards, petrified frog, marbles, all kinds of things here at school today. So Johnny's mom says, Johnny, you forgot all this stuff at school today. But I'll tell you what Johnny doesn't say. He doesn't say, oh my God, I'm 6 years old and my memory's going. He just says, oh, and carries on. But you hit 30, forget one thing, and oh my God, there goes my memory. It's silly. From what you've already learned about the tremendous gift you've been given, your 30 billion brain cells, and virtually unlimited potential for connection, you might consider changing that attitude. What I want to do now is teach you a simple memory system. It's called a mnemonic system. Mnemonics comes from the Greek word for memory. The Greek goddess of memory was Mnemosyne, the goddess of unlimited memory. And the Greeks developed these memory systems because they used to have oration contests where they would speak for 2 or 3 hours without notes, and they had to remember everything perfectly. The system I'm going to teach you is called the number rhyme system. It's very, very simple, and it's also lots of fun. We're going to start by learning rhyming words that go with the numbers 1 to 10. I'll take you through these rhyming words. We're going to memorize them, and they're easy to remember because they rhyme. Once you've memorized them, I'm going to show you how to use them to remember a list of 10 things, like the test that we had a little bit earlier on. And then we'll talk about the implications of learning this simple system for improving not just your memory overall, but also your creative power. So, if you have a piece of paper handy, you can jot these down, but they're so easy to remember that you won't even need to write them. Just keep repeating them out loud 3, 4, 5 times, and you'll find that they become unforgettable. So number 1, the rhyming word is bun, like a hamburger bun. Number 2, the rhyming word is shoe. 3 is tree. 4 is door. 5, hive, like a beehive. 6 is sticks. 7 is heaven. 8 is gate. 9 is vine. And 10 is hen. So what I want you to do is go over these, say them out loud. I'll take you through them one more time. This time, as I take you through each one, I want you to create a picture in your mind's eye of the object that goes with the number. So I'll say the number, then I'll say the rhyming word, and you create a picture in your mind's eye of that thing. So here we go. 1, bun. So create a picture in your mind's eye of that bun. What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Make it as vivid and multisensory a picture as you can. 2, shoe. Picture that shoe in your mind's eye, the texture, the color, the shape. 3, tree. Exaggerate a picture of a tree in your mind's eye. Don't just pick any old little tree in the garden. Make it a gigantic tree. 4, door. Pick a specific door. See its color, shape, and then exaggerate it in your mind's eye. Make it gigantic. 4, door. 5, hive. So picture a hive. What shape is it? What are the sounds emanating from it? 6, sticks. Picture those sticks. Color, texture, shape, size. 7, heaven. Now you have to be careful here because you get a little bit carried away. You want to create a recognizable image of heaven. Maybe you've got clouds and pearly gates, angels playing harps, and so on. Make it a nice, definitive, recognizable image for heaven. 8 is gate. And I want you to see a specific gate and make sure you distinguish your 8 from your 4. 9, vine. See a vine. The texture, the color, the shape. And 10 is hen. Picture your hen. So I want you to rehearse these a couple more times. I'll tell you what, let's do a little test. I'll say the number and you shout out the word that goes with it. And the reason I want you to shout it out is it'll really imprint it in your brain. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Aha. 8, 10, 3, 5, 1, 6, 8, 4, 9, 10, 3, 6, 7. Okay, how'd you do? You probably know them pretty well by now, but you might be asking yourself, what the heck do I do with these? Or maybe you're thinking, hey, I really learned something from this program. 1 bun, 2 shoe, 3 tree, 4 door, 5 hive, 6 sticks, 7 heaven, 8 gate, vine, 10 hen. I learned something fantastic. It's just the beginning. Here's how the system works. Now that you have encoded these rhyming words and created a clear image for each one, what we're going to do is learn 10 new words. And as I give you these 10 new words, you're going to link the word that I give you by creating an image of it with your rhyming word. You're going to create a linked, vivid, associated image. When the Greeks developed mnemonics, the first thing they realized about memory is that it works by linking one idea with another. This linking process is called association. The mind works by association. Listen to this from the great genius William James. The more a fact is associated within the mind, the better possession of it our memory retains. Each of its associates becomes a hook to which it hangs, a means to fish it up when sunk beneath the surface. Together they form a network of attachments by which it is woven into the entire tissue of our thought. The secret of a good memory is thus the secret of forming diverse and multiple associations with every fact we care to retain. So what we're going to do is create those powerful associations. And the Greeks realized that the best way to make powerful associations is by imagery, by creating pictures in the mind's eye. That's why I had you start by making a picture of the bun, a picture of the shoe, a picture of the tree, and so on. So forget the system for a moment. Let's just say you wanted to remember the word dog and the word bicycle, and you wanted to remember that they go together. How would you do it? Most people think, well, probably have a dog riding a bicycle, and that's right on. You could also have the dog carrying the bicycle. You could have the dog just run over by the bicycle. It's not pretty, but it works for your memory. What about having the dog chase the bicycle? Is that a good idea? It's not so good. I'll tell you why. Because you could think dog, and then you could think, gee, what was it chasing? Could have been chasing a bus, could have been chasing a car, could have been chasing the postman. So one of the secrets of effective image association is to make sure that the images are clearly interacting. That's why you put the dog on the bicycle or carrying the bicycle or run over by the bicycle. Now, the Greeks also said that the more color, the more absurdity, the more sensuality you can bring to the associated images, the easier they will be to remember. So maybe you make it a big dog riding a tiny little bicycle, so it's more unusual and outstanding. This, by the way, explains why television advertising is the way it is. They don't just say, gee, the research shows that our product's much more effective, we'll send you the research and it's very interesting, and so on and so forth. They have Michael Jordan playing basketball with Bugs Bunny. They have a pink bunny rabbit going across your television screen pounding a drum. Absurd, bizarre, unusual images, burping frogs, saying out the name of the product. Things that are unforgettable because they're so absurd, unusual, colorful, multisensory. That's how memory works. So, what I want you to do is apply the Greek principles, make your associations vivid, absurd or unusual, sensual, dynamic, they're moving, they're alive, and make sure they're interactive or directly physically linked. And the way it works is like this. I'm going to say to you in a minute, number one, the rhyming word is bun, and the word I want you to remember is, and I'm going to give you another word. And then what I want you to do is to link your picture of the word I give you with your image of the bun according to the Greek principles. Then I'll say two, the rhyming word is shoe, and the word I want you to remember is, and I want you to make the same kind of link. Do this just in your mind's eye. Don't write it down, and have fun. Okay, ready? Here we go. Number one, the rhyming word is bun, and the word I want you to remember is table. Number two, the rhyming word is shoe, and the word I want you to remember is feather. Number three, The rhyming word is tree, and the word I want you to remember is cats. Number 8. The rhyming word is gate, and the word I want you to remember is pencils. Number 5. The rhyming word is hive, and the word I want you to remember is professor. Number 7, the rhyming word is heaven, and the word I want you to remember is car. Number 4, the rhyming word is door, and the word I want you to remember is leaf. Number 9, the rhyming word is vine, and the word I want you to remember is shirts. Number 6, the rhyming word is sticks, and the word I want you to remember is orange. And number 10, the rhyming word is hen, and the word I want you to remember is rooster. See if you can find some way to link them. Remember, it's your mind. So if you have some paper handy, jot down your number word pairs that you remember. You don't have to write down the rhyming word again, just the words that went with them. And if you're driving along in your car, well, then just say them out loud. So stop the program now and come back after you have recalled as many as you can recall. Welcome back. Let's find out how you did on that test. Number 1 was table. Number 2 was feather. Number 3 was cats. Number 4 was leaf. Number 5 was professor. Number 6 was orange. Number 7 was car. Number 8 was pencils. Number 9 was shirts. And good old number 10, rooster. So score yourself 1 point for each correct number word pair. How'd you do? Did you improve from the first time? Did you get 100%? Most people find that they have indeed improved, and a lot of folks get 100%, but don't be concerned if you didn't. All it means is you need a little more practice applying the Greek principles. So what I want you to do is go back and look at the ones that you didn't get if you didn't get 100% and redo them in your mind's eye. Then you will have 100% also. You know, when I teach this memory exercise to large groups, which I do frequently, it's always one of the highlights of the course for me. Because when I give them the first test that you took a while ago, I watch everybody's face and they're frowning. You can see that this exasperated look on their face, and they jot down one answer and then their eyes go up. It's like they're searching for the other answer and they can't find it. And they kind of put their pens down with some degree of resignation, and average score is about 4 out of 10. Then they learn this little system, and I watch them do it again. I was imagining your face when you were taking this test the second time. And it's amazing what people look like. Brighter and happier, and they jot down the answers a little bit more quickly, or they pause for a second, they go, yeah, okay, and then fill it in. And most people do a lot better. A lot of folks get 100%. The cool thing people do, as a matter of fact, when they finish this the second time, is they put their pens down and have this look on their face like, give me something hard. This was too easy. Come on. Hey, I'm a genius. I hope you had that experience. If you didn't this first time you took the test applying the system, just go back, rehearse the principles, redo them in your mind's eye. You'll be 100% too. Now, why have I taught you this simple system? 2 main reasons. The first is very simply just to demonstrate what your mind is capable of with a little bit of training. This is just a few minutes of training you in memory systems, and you've probably experienced a tremendous improvement. It's possible to go on training your memory to learn in the same manner how to remember 1,000 things, 10,000 things. But our primary focus here is not so much to develop memory, it's rather to teach you how to use your memory in relationship to your creative ability. So the mnemonics provide a clue. But here's what I want you to think about now. What do you think will happen to your creative ability as you practice mnemonics? As you learn to quickly associate created images? That's right, it will improve. Mnemonics are like aerobics for your creative visualization power. Earlier I mentioned the goddess Mnemosyne, the goddess of unlimited memory. And according to the Greeks, Mnemosyne was the favorite consort of Zeus, king of the gods. Zeus was the god of unlimited energy. And the Greeks tell us that Zeus and Mnemosyne got together and made love for 9 days and nights continuously. The children of the union between Zeus and Mnemosyne, between unlimited energy and unlimited memory, were the muses, the goddesses of creativity. Energy poured into memory yields creativity. The simple mnemonic system that you learned is a way of energizing your memory. Let's look in more depth at the nature of memory and how we can pour it into our creative power. After many attempts to discover a memory center in the brain, researchers have concluded that memory isn't localized. Instead, it appears to be spread throughout the brain in a staggeringly complex neural network. Nobel Prize-winning neurophysiologist Sir Charles Sherrington describes this as an enchanted loom where millions of flashing shuttles weave a dissolving pattern, always a meaningful pattern, though never an abiding one, a shifting harmony of subpatterns. It is as if the Milky Way had entered upon some cosmic dance. We're talking about your brain here. This network has a virtually limitless capacity to store and recall information. A psychologist named Rosenzweig estimated that if you were to learn 10 new bits of information every second for the rest of your life, you would still have the majority of your memory capacity unfilled. All your memories are woven together through networks of association. Everything you remember is remembered in relationship to another memory. So the more you know, the more you can know, and the more you know there is to know. One secret of cultivating a good memory and awakening your creative power is learning to energize your knowledge through free association. In 1879, the renowned scientist Sir Francis Galton took a stroll down a London street. As he walked, he allowed his mind to associate freely with everything he saw. He counted about 300 objects and noted a multitude of associations with each one. One association led to another and another and another. Samples of my whole life passed before me, he wrote. Many bygone incidents, which I had never suspected to have formed part of my stock of thoughts, had been glanced at as objects too familiar to awaken the attention. I saw at once that the brain was vastly more active than I had previously believed it to be, and I was perfectly amazed at the unexpected width of the field of its everyday associations. If you explore your associations as Galton did, you will remember things that would otherwise seem inaccessible. Several years ago, I was away for a weekend when I got a call from a friend who had just bought a new house and had 3 days to have a house inspection conducted. She was interested in hiring an inspection firm I had employed when I purchased my home the previous year. When she asked me on the phone, I had no idea of the inspector's name or his employer. If I didn't know about the power of association, I probably would have said what most people would say, "Sorry, I don't remember." Instead, I asked her to give me a few minutes to do an associative search. I began by trying to remember anything at all concerning the inspection of my house. The first association that arose was a picture of myself standing on the front lawn with the inspector looking up at the roof. I remember him telling me, "You're going to have to replace that roof," and it was outstanding, easy to remember because a new roof was going to be expensive. In my mind's eye, I continued on an associational tour of the house with the inspector. My train of associations moved through the kitchen, down into the basement, and then to the water main. In the flow of the association, the house inspector put a sticker on the water main valve. As he did, I remembered a name written on it, Home Check Inspectors. I called my friend back and told her the name. Your knowledge is much more than whatever you instantly recall. As you begin to understand this, you greatly mobilize your intelligence. When people say, "I don't know," or "I don't remember," often what they really mean is that the information isn't immediately available. But if you stop and conduct an associational search, following the flow of your associations, you usually find that you do remember and you do know. The more you have this positive experience, the more your confidence will build. The more you build your confidence in the power of associative thinking, the more you can access it for purposes of recall and creative thinking. To conduct a fruitful associative search, you must be willing to embrace the tension of not knowing. This becomes easier to do as you cultivate an awareness of your brain's amazing potential and design. The fear of getting the wrong answer forces many people to be intolerant of the uncertainty that accompanies real thinking. Like Frank Herbert says in Dune, fear is the mind killer, the little death. Intolerance for uncertainty and fear of failure preempts the creative associational guesswork that is a key element of higher intellectual functioning. The willingness to venture a guess wakes up your brain's vast creative capacity. I call this the chutzpah principle of intelligence. Chutzpah is a Yiddish word that can be interpreted to mean courage, coraggio, or nerve in the face of uncertainty. It's the willingness to get aboard the train without knowing for certain where it's headed. Thinkers with chutzpah make a habit of conducting an associational search when presented with a question or challenge for which an answer is not immediately available. When your first reaction to a problem is, "Gee, I don't know," you can awaken your natural associational power by asking, "Well, if I did know, what would it be?" Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman provides a wonderful example of the potency of chutzpah. As a member of the team of scientists working on the Manhattan Project, he offered significant theoretical underpinnings for the design of the plant that produced fissionable material for the atomic bomb. When the engineers presented him with the plans for the plant, Feynman was faced with a quandary. He didn't know the meaning of the symbols on the blueprints. Although the engineers had offered a brief explanation, Feynman missed a few key elements because he was daydreaming, and he neglected to ask for an explanation at the time. Embarrassed, he conducted a quick associational search and decided to guess the identity of one of the symbols on the plans. As he describes it, "I take my finger and I put it down on one of the mysterious little crosses in the middle of one of the blueprints, and I say, 'What happens if this valve gets stuck?' Figuring they're going to say, 'That's not a valve, sir, that's a window.' It turns out that the mysterious cross was a valve, and that Feynman's question was critical to the safe construction of the plant. The engineers were astonished by Feynman's ability to read their blueprint, calling his guess fantastic and a work of genius. Of course, Feynman's chutzpah was complemented with a great deal of study and knowledge. There is a critical difference between an informed guess, creative association, intelligent speculation, and total rubbish. Nevertheless, you can make dramatic improvements in your ability to solve problems and discover opportunities by awakening your virtually unlimited capacity for association with a little chutzpah. One of the great misconceptions about creative thinking is that it appears out of nowhere. This is just plain false. Creativity is the result of a new combination of existing elements. In other words, an association that has not been made before. Studies of highly creative individuals reveal that they nurture their creativity through a continuous quest for knowledge. They make regular deposits in their memory banks and constantly compound their interest. Mozart grew up surrounded by magnificent music. Newton took every opportunity to immerse himself physically and intellectually in light. Prior to writing Moby Dick, Herman Melville was obsessed with the study of whales and whaling. Most solutions and innovations involve small adaptations of previous discoveries. As Thomas Edison once said, "Make it a habit to keep on the lookout for novel and interesting ideas that others have used successfully. Your idea has to be original only in its adaptation to the problem you're working on." In other words, you'll frequently find that rather than reinventing the wheel, all you need to do is give it a new spin.